Lend me your what?
Lend me your ear.
Oh, okay.
Lend me your ear. I get by with a little help from my friends. I get high with a little help from my friends.
That's right. Little help from our friends.
If
And
you need anybody, I just need a quarterback.
oh, hey, we got to play this thing.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
The starting time is always approximate. Apologies to those who are waiting, but we are here. Part 2 of the Week 9 preview of the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom talking Seattle and Baltimore. I just want to see more JSN going forward. Like, can that continue to trend forward? Baltimore side a little more interesting and exciting.
Right.
Seattle side maybe a little bit more confounding for fantasy
Right.
GMs, Bloom.
Right? I think we know Baltimore's a good team. We're wondering about Seattle. You like the Leonard Williams trade. That one got lost a little bit in the shuffle with the trade deadline, but makes a lot of sense. They're excited to have him. He's excited to be there. And this is a Seattle team trying to stake a claim to having more in their future in 2024 than maybe folks might expect. But Geno's going to face a good pass rush, and we've seen a Jekyll and Hyde Geno, and it's not like the quarterback ranks are great this week. Geno's probably still a top 10, top 12 quarterback, but there's a low floor there, maybe a high ceiling. This could be a high scoring game. We're going to watch Kenneth Walker and his health. Gotta like Zach Charbonnet. And I think if this is a game where Seattle's trailing, isn't that a Zach Charbonnet game? He's coming on. I think he's going to have a good second half. That could really get underway in this game. DK Metcalf's healthy enough. Got 14 targets last week. Tyler Lockett, Mr. Dependable. These guys are both in your lineup, even though, again, this is a tough defensive matchup. And like you said, Cease, Jackson Smith and Jigba, is he the X factor for this offense? Because the stuff they've been working on with him, wide receiver screens, things where you get the ball in his hands quickly, that could be a way to slow down Baltimore's pass rush, slow down this Baltimore defense. But I think it's a pretty exciting time for the Seattle Seahawks, and this is a good yardstick game. Now, Joe Burrow wasn't healthy yet, but they played the Bengals right down to the wire. So they're traveling east. We know sometimes West Coast teams in the early games can give us a dud, but I don't think so. I think that Pete Carroll's going to have his guys ready to play, and I know Lamar Jackson's going to be ready to play.
Yeah, and that's where my confidence in Seattle players this week comes from. Is it's actually the flip side. Is Lamar's going to make you put the foot on the gas?
Yeah,
and like what we're seeing with Lamar Jackson is completely exciting. Obviously, I love Zay Flowers. I say it every week. Running game is the Baltimore running game. It should never end, right?
right.
Because it seems like an endless confusion. It's like motivating Tatum Bell somewhere. Like we've seen this before.
Yeah, we have. I'll tell you what we haven't seen before, Cease. This team is 6-2, and it feels like they've underachieved. It feels like we still have not seen all phases of this
Right.
team.
It feels like they're just kind of getting going.
Right. That's exciting. And this is, of course, the AFC side of the bracket that is dominated by talk of Burrow and Mahomes and Josh Allen. And if we're talking about a dark horse, it's somebody like Tua Tagovailoa. And meanwhile, here's this Baltimore team. And this is a solid Seattle team, but they could really show just how much better they are than merely solid teams. This is a ceiling game possibility for Lamar Jackson. We've seen more floor games. Whenever the other team can't compete with them, there's at least a reasonable chance that Seattle can compete with them and make Lamar Jackson continue to throw more. We still should see enough Gus Edwards. I think there's a toe issue. Watch the practice reports. He said he's looking forward to another big workload this week. So just watch this. But if Gus Edwards is in, he's in your lineup with coming off the 3-touchdown game. And let's not forget about Justice Hill. Lurking in the weeds with this injury, this toe injury. If this thing gets worse and worse, Justice Hill's looked pretty good. So has Gus Edwards. Zay Flowers should be in your lineup. Mark Andrews should be in your lineup. And while Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, who's at least okay after taking that big hit to the midsection, while these guys aren't fantasy relevant, they are good weapons for Lamar Jackson, and Rashad Bateman in particular is starting to come on. So you wonder maybe if, remember, he had that revision surgery with the foot. You wonder if maybe now that we're at midseason, he is starting to feel like himself. He's certainly starting to look like himself.
Yeah, starting to look like himself and starting to look like we got some stinker games to talk about. We got a couple of good ones, though. So bear with us, everybody. It's a rough week. Only 4 teams on bye, but only about 4 good games on Sunday. Tampa Bay and Houston is up next. And, well, it's Baker the Baby Maker doing his thing. And, well, we know Rachaad White trying to do his thing. Again, not a lot of confidence here in what Tampa Bay can do. But on the road against Houston, maybe you should be a little bit more confident in your Buccaneers players.
I think so. I think that this absolutely can be a game where Baker Mayfield has a good fantasy game. And remember, this is a great context. This is a stinker, or this is not a game that is between 2 good teams, and yet one of these teams can still win their division. Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. It's still Rachaad White's pack field. Sometimes there's just no comers. There's just nobody who is worth even giving a longer look, and he's going to get those receptions out of the backfield 2 big weeks in a row. Mike Evans not traded. They got some phone calls about him. Remember, before the season, they were trying to do an extension. So Mike Evans is still there. Again, this is a potential playoff team. Evans has been slumping, though. So maybe Chris Godwin starts to come on. Maybe Cade Otton, who's had a few decent games in terms of volume, if you're looking for a tight end. But the bigger question here is what happened to the Texans offense last week, and can it look more like it did before the bye this week?
Yeah, that was weird. Now this week will be less weird with, I don't know, Devin Singletary. Are we still waiting on Dameon Pierce? I think that's what I wrote yesterday on the Newswire. It's like, oh, there's problems, confusion in the backfield. Why am I saying confusing today? Maybe I'm just confused, Bloom. It's got to wake up. Right. Wake it up with the Audible. But the Texans may be asleep on the field this week.
Right. What's the song Land of Confusion, the old Genesis song with the video with all the puppets? Mm-hmm. This is a land of confusion, the Houston offense. Hopefully it's a CJ Stroud bounce back game. And Tampa Bay kind of resembles the Steelers defense in that if the pass rush gets home, it could be a long afternoon. But if the pass rush doesn't get home, then Stroud might do some things. But throwing to who? We saw Noah Brown, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell kind of have a 3-man rotation among 2 spots, all playing about 70% of the snaps or so. That ain't good for fantasy, right? Collins is the best play as a ceiling play. Brown actually had the best stats. Tank Dell were waiting. And maybe this is an offense that, while we saw bigger things in store in the second half of the year, Bobby Slowick in the system, get the running game going. CJ Stroud, he's not a rookie at the end of the season. Yeah, well, this offense looked like an offense led by a rookie quarterback last week. The backfield, we've got Dameon Pierce, didn't practice on Wednesday, and this is not one of those he's going to be fine or there's no signs he's not going to be fine. It was a rest day. No, I think that we may not see Dameon Pierce, and even if we do, spoiler alert, Devin Singletary is definitely a what the heck flex, maybe even a what the heck running back too. And more importantly, Cease, if he gets that chance, even if it's just that Pierce doesn't get as big an opportunity because he's not 100%, then Singletary gets a chance to really put his stamp on this backfield and make it so that they can't go back to an uninspiring committee. But at the same time, this is, I think, the backfield that is worse 32nd out of 32 teams in yards before contact, how many times they're being met in the backfield. That's probably not going to change, certainly not going to change against a stout run defense like Tampa.
Like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What about the Indianapolis Colts against the Carolina Panthers? I always do that to myself when I jot down names to keep track of the timestamps. I'm like, is that LAR or CAR? No, it's CAR. And oh boy, Indianapolis side now with more Josh Downs, right? Like, okay, can we see more of that coming through for Gardner Minshew and company in the backfield? We kind of already have the clarity there that we need. So Indianapolis side going up against Carolina should be is Pittman still mad? He might not be mad after this game.
Right. The target should be there. The Reichvenge game. What can we say about this? Gardner Minshew, a reasonably high floor if you have to play him as a quarterback 2 super flex or a desperation quarterback 1. Again, 3 good offenses on bye. So he's part of the reason that we're confused and these preview shows are dragging a little bit. And when we get to the quality of the offenses in the games, again, is 3 good offenses on bye. And Denver. Does Jonathan Taylor have some momentum this week? This could be a Jonathan Taylor week. You don't have the luxury of not playing a player of his caliber, even in a split. But hey, Zach Moss remains a what the heck flex. And this could be a game where Gardner Minshew is efficient and the running game gets the 30 plus carries. We've seen that happen. And of course, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman remain in your lineup with the volume they're getting or the quality of volume. Like I said, there was a game earlier this year when Minshew threw the ball 23 times. The running backs had about 36 carries, I think, between them. And the passing game was still pretty productive. We would expect that, except again, this is a Carolina defense that came alive against the Texans. And you would expect Bryce Young to look about as alive as he has against this Colts pass defense this week.
Yeah, and that's what, again, we're waiting on Bryce Young to look more like himself. We're waiting on him to pepper more targets for Adam Thielen, of course. That became a thing after Andy Dalton came in, and Bryce kind of figured that out. Should have already, but he's a quick learner. All right, who else can help him learn out there this week for the Panthers at home against the Colts?
Maybe this is a Chuba Hubbard game, maybe, but this is another running game that hasn't really got going no matter who's been in the backfield. Colts, if they have a strength on defense, it is their run defense. So again, Bryce Young, we're waiting. He's going to target Adam Thielen, maybe Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo had a pretty solid week last week, and maybe this is another one of those situations. Again, rookies coming on, rookies having more opportunity in the second half of the season, and certainly with Terrace Marshall all but out of the picture here, it could be Mingo. But this is another one of those games, Cecil. We look at these games like Houston and Tampa, like Indy and Carolina. And when we get to this point in the season and teams have nothing to play for, and in this case, I think that neither of these teams are going anywhere this year. Sometimes we get 31-28 games. Sometimes we get 13-10 games. Sometimes we get small offensive games. And we have a couple of games coming up, at least to make up for that in the 4 o'clock Eastern, the night game. We won't talk about the Monday night game.
Yeah, and Giants and the Raiders. Jason, you should be happy we're talking about your Raiders right now. And the Crankin asks, is Aiden O'Connell worth his stash? Yes, completely. We'll get to that in a little bit. But it looks like Daniel Jones is going to play. Okay, he's been cleared, and I believe he was full yesterday, top of my head, recording Thursday morning, if you're listening to this. So, yes, Daniel Jones is back. Hopefully, Wan'Dale Robinson is out there. Saquon Barkley, I don't know, is he going to get 39 touches again?
How many?
Could probably pare that down to 29 and you'd be okay. But against the Raiders in Vegas, a team's either going to lay down or they're going to spark. I know Jason might be sparking it up in Greeley, but let's talk about the Giants side first.
Yeah, you would expect this offense, even without Darren Waller, who's going to miss weeks, not days, that they're going to be functional against the Raiders with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has a high ceiling, as always, if you're looking for a quarterback this week or a quarterback to super flex. And without Waller, what are we looking at? We're looking at Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe more Jalen Hyatt. Raiders do have a few good pass rushers. Maybe more Saquon Barkley. Like you said, Cease, give him 10 receptions and 29 carries. Maybe we see Paris Campbell get involved. Some questions here that Darren Waller-sized hole. Maybe it's Daniel Bellinger. There's a what-the-heck tight end for you this week, because you would expect the Giants to have a spirited game, as long as they're not out too late on the strip. The other side of this matchup, though, Cease, you covered Josh McDaniels. How much of a ding-dong, the witch is dead effect could there be for the Raiders this week?
It's a celebration, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be to get rid of that guy, to have everyone be so happy that he's gone. Like, who are Josh McDaniels guys? Nobody.
Nobody's
in your corner. Nobody, buddy. Nobody's in your corner. If you're Josh McDaniels, nobody's there. So this team could be motivated now with more Aiden O'Connell. Like, okay, I'm just curious, Bloom. I don't think I'll put my fantasy reputation on the Raiders this week, but I would imagine they'd be plenty motivated or plenty excited to play football their way.
Right? Isn't this a case potentially of the players are kind of running the team now, or at least the ownership chose the players over Josh McDaniels? Easy choice.
Mhm.
And again, I want to say, Cease, like we got the good editing. How many times did we talk about this? How many times when we talked about Josh McDaniels in the offseason, in the preseason, we were previewing the Raiders season, did we say, we know how this story is going to end? I didn't necessarily expect it to end in the middle of the season in this way, but we knew it was going to end at some point and not with Josh McDaniels going off on the shoulders of the players. So we're right back where we started from with the Raiders, and we'll see what the next experiment is going to be. But for now, we might see that a team where the players feel finally unencumbered can overachieve. Aiden O'Connell, their best quarterback, probably starting for the rest of the year. I think that he is competent enough to keep Jacoby Myers and Davante Adams. And Davante Adams sees if there's one guy who feels like, oh, finally the weight is lifted.
Yep.
Didn't get traded. You know, the reunion with Derek Carr didn't last long, et cetera, et cetera. You got your paycheck. You got the money you wanted. Money's not everything, but certainly having the ownership pick you and your teammates over the coach, that is something. Josh Jacobs
Right.
faces a tough defense. Giants defense has come on. Maybe Giants defense you would look at here. So this is an interesting game. Maybe not so interesting for fantasy, but certainly interesting to watch how the Raiders react to hopefully Josh McDaniels' last stand.
See, Steve in the chat room, he's got it down. Ball of confusion.
Temptations, yeah.
Temptations.
People moving up, people moving in.
I don't know why I could call it that. Run, but you still can't hide.
Yeah, we're
Now,
typical.
what's a favorite of mine, and
Yeah.
this maybe makes me sound bad. I didn't know who originally did it because Anthrax did it, and they did it with their two different lead singers. They had a guy before Joey Belladonna, but anyway, they did it with Joey Belladonna, and they did it with John Bush. And so they would alternate like verses, and it was just damn cool because they don't have any beef. Usually when band members change, especially lead singers, there's like beef between the old guy and the new guy. Like, no, I thought Anthrax was great with John Bush. I thought Anthrax was great with Joey Belladonna. So when they did Ball of Confusion, that was my jam.
That's a good one. I feel like, I do feel like maybe the kids today, they miss out on that experience we got to have when someone would bring you a cassette tape and a Maxell XL2, some sort of blank tape where, they wrote, you got to check this out. Because that was the only way you heard about stuff like Anthrax, right? When you were in middle school. Well, maybe for you it was high school. But it was a joy, a little jewel, something coming into your life that you had no idea existed.
Yeah, joy. Like this next game, we finally get to talk about some good football. Maybe Dallas, it's on you. Dallas, I'm looking at you, Dallas, right there. You, Dak Prescott and company with Tony Pollard, and now Michael Gallup, maybe a little bit more. Like, nah, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily seem like it. One of those tight ends will come through for you, and of course, you've got CeeDee Lamb there. But it's Dallas and Eagles, Bloom, motivating factors in the NFC East.
Yeah, this is a marquee game with a marquee game coming up later on. And this is going to be fun. Jalen Hurts has been doing more as a passer, but he's facing a really good pass rush here. I don't think he's as dangerous a runner. I think the knee is affecting him, the knee issue. Still, obviously, he's in lineups, but this could be a Dallas Cowboys defense game, maybe. This could certainly be a game where we watch Dak Prescott have to meet and really live up to what the Philly offense can do. And maybe they can now that it is just that simple. Throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb. It is really just that simple. Tony Pollard going to do anything in this game? Well, we got to keep him in our lineups. We don't really have the luxury of these players that are going to be able to get anything more than 15 touches. Or is there going to be some staying power here for Jake Ferguson? Because it's not really with CeeDee Lamb dominating the passing game anybody else that we're going to look at in our lineup. But I think for Dallas, this is a game where they have the ghost of that San Francisco game in their minds, where how do you measure up against the best of the NFC? Not very well. And sure, you can thump the Rams, but This is a different test against Philadelphia. This is a great rivalry going back decades. And it's one that could really shift our expectations of who can win this division, who can host a home playoff game, maybe even who can control the NFC side of the bracket with San Francisco fading going into their bye. So a lot on the line here. But this one also reminds us, these teams hate each other. You have lots of bad blood, which usually makes for good football.
Yeah, bad blood, good football, and, well, Jalen Hurts playing good football, so let's see him go out there and do it again. He's going to go do it, and you already know the players that he's going to do it with. The backfield remains a bit of a mystery at times, or basically all the time, Bloom, and will we continue to see more Dallas Goedert? That's what I'm watching with Philadelphia, and this one, it's a get your popcorn type of game.
It is. And Dallas's defense, again, has a chance to really be the story of this game. The pass rush really has a chance to control this game. But so does A.J. Brown. And I want to say it again, because we just see things through the fantasy lens. And yes, through the numbers, you can see that A.J. Brown is doing something really special right now. 6 games over 125 yards, never been done before, being mentioned with names like Calvin Johnson and things like that. But also, folks, just if you watch what he's doing, and Jalen Hurts understands, just throw the ball somewhere in his vicinity. He's making perfect plays. He's in the zone. He's in the zone week after week. But also, Devontae Smith, you have to imagine, is going to get targets. He had his first big game since all the way back in about week 2 last week. And like you said, Dallas Goedert. I think that these are all players. This could be a wonderful, high-scoring game, and to make up for some of the duds we've been talking about. And then there's DeAndre Swift. And I think another thing we have to consider, remember, you don't have Shane Steichen here, Brian Johnson calling the plays. How do you slow down a pass rush? You run at it. You run. Screen passes, delays, draws. That sounds like DeAndre Swift to me. That sounds like, and even a little bit of Kenneth Gainwell. So I think this one is a really good personality test. We saw the personality test for the Dallas offense. I mean, it's not going to be subtle, but at least they did something. At least they went to the bye and said, I know, let's throw to our best wide receiver. Let's throw one of the best wide receivers in the league. Philly's already figured that out, but it's a little different whenever you have to face a pass rush like Dallas. What is Brian Johnson going to do? So many layers to this game, and this is going to be a good one. And at least the fact that all these afternoon games are boring except for this one means we can really concentrate on it.
Yeah, concentrate on this one, and then Buffalo and Cincinnati. The last time we saw Buffalo, they were doing what they needed to do, passing game-wise, spreading the ball around, using more of Khalil Shakir, using more of Dalton Kincaid, obviously using Stephon Diggs. And Josh Allen, he was the leader. He was the conductor. Does that continue against Cincinnati? Did they kind of figure it out on their own, Bloom? Or were they forced to figure it out? I hope this continues. Buffalo, your best chance at going all the way and winning the Super Bowl is the offensive design plus more running that you showed last week. Do you have faith that continues?
Yeah, and Josh Allen is really evolving as a quarterback. And we're seeing Josh Allen do some of the same things that Patrick Mahomes did. Mahomes had to go through a period of struggle, and Josh Allen's a little more preemptive about it. Just getting the ball out quickly, just keeping the defense off balance because they don't really get a chance to attack. They don't really get a chance to read and react. They're just reacting. And certainly that makes sense against Cincinnati. That makes sense against the Cincinnati defense. I would want to take a step back and say this is the rematch of the game that didn't get finished last year. I mentioned Damar Hamlin, who, he's back on the roster, and it's good that he's been able to come all the way back from that to resume his football career. But I don't want to lose Cecil. I don't want to lose that moment when the horror came from the reminder that these are human beings, right? That they're really risking everything. So let's not forget that. But also for Buffalo, this is going to sound kind of trite coming back to this kind of way. Buffalo this is a huge, important game, not just emotionally because of the memories. Again, these teams are families, Imagine watching one of your family members almost die in front of you, right? That's why they didn't play the rest of the game. That's why they didn't need to finish the game. But also, this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. This is a team that wants to lift the Lombardi Trophy together. And, again, for fantasy, Davis Murray's looking over his shoulder. Leonard Fournette probably won't be activated for this game. Is James Cook going to eventually be a big part of the offense for a whole game? Dalton Kincaid changing things. Let's watch and see if Quentin Morris is back to make more two tight end sets, or we're going to see more Khalil Shakir. Certainly, what the heck flex this week. Gabe Davis getting involved in that short passing game. Again, the short passing game, which makes sense against Cincinnati. Cincinnati has a tough pass defense. They're not a pushover in any way, shape, or form. But Buffalo's going to have to earn everything. But this could be cease. This could be they go to Cincinnati, they win, they show that even with Joe Burrow healthy, they're still very much part of the power structure, the picture in the AFC. If they lose, they're going to fall to 5-4. And we've talked about how little margin of error there is. So speaking of mortality for this team's season, a tough game on the road. If they can't win it, then they're going to have to seriously ask themselves some questions playing a first place schedule for the rest of the season that is going to be a tough gauntlet to just make it as a wild card.
Yeah. So what is the answer for Cincinnati on the flip side? Like, what is their answer for Buffalo and their weakness? And, well, you can attack with Joe Burrow, certainly through the air, but is it a little bit more Joe Mixon this week?
Yeah.
Do they save some stuff? This one's at home for Cincinnati. I'll assume the weather will be okay. NFLweather.com if you need to check it out. But for me, it's like, okay, these two teams could face again in the postseason. Do you save a little something? Do you hammer it more with Mixon and save a few things for the postseason? Or do you go all in? You go all out, Bloom, this week to make it happen.
Right. Well, the good news is that the Bengals in the second half of the year last year, and they're kind of picking up where they left off, really simplified things on offense and just a lot more 3 wide receiver, Joe Burrow taking the snap out of the shotgun, just like what we're seeing from Josh Allen now. Make a quick read, get the ball out. And the defense is really powerless to slow that down when the quarterback is making the right read, delivering the ball on time and accurately. So I think that Buffalo can know what's coming, but really what's the plan to slow that down? I'm not sure. Now, what's Buffalo's weakness? Well, they showed us by trading for Rasul Douglas, right? I mean, the secondary, the cornerback position, and that's where the strength is for the Bengals. So I do think we're going to watch T. Higgins certainly creep back into lineups, maybe get back closer to 90-95% snaps, getting a little bit healthier with that rib injury. Maybe Tyler Boyd is a what-the-heck flex. And like you said, Joe Mixon looking really spry, looking better than he did at any point last year when it looked like he was slowing down. So I agree with you, Cecil, that Mixon can be that combination in boxing terms, where you mix in some runs out of the shotgun, you mix in some screen passes, because I think what you're going to see is Buffalo's defense having to play on their heels, having to play that classic frustrating, just keep it in front of you, just don't give up any big plays. And that kind of stance is you can run defenses over when they're not aggressive and they're not firing off the ball. So everything's coming together for the Bengals. And I think that this is going to be a really good game. After we start off with Kansas City, Miami, we end Sunday with Buffalo, Cincinnati. I'm not sure we're going to have any more clarity, Cease, on how the AFC playoff bracket's going to shake out, but these games should get us really excited to watch it play out in January.
We're excited to watch it play out, and then Monday night. So it's like, okay, we like all this. It's all good. It's all good. Oh, Monday. Oh, yeah. Okay. LA Chargers versus the New York Jets. And, okay, the Chargers players you already know. Now with more Quentin Johnston, maybe. Bloom, I'd like to see more before I'm trusting him, even as a what-the-heck flex.
Right.
And I love Johnston coming out of college. It's just been a slow start. So I want to see a little bit more before I'm even throwing him in as that what-the-heck flex. The Jets can get after it defensively. How did Justin Herbert and company respond to that in this prime time matchup?
Yes, when you look at this game, the strongest force in this game by far is the Jets defense.
Yes.
By far. So what can Justin Herbert and company do measure up to that? You feel bad in some ways for the NFL schedule makers because you put together all these Aaron Rodgers games. This is going to be great. Aaron Rodgers against Justin Herbert. Yeah, well. So Justin Herbert against a tough defense. The quarterback ranks are pretty thin. Chances are, if you have Justin Herbert, you're starting him. I mean, I could see you might have drafted Tua as your number 2 quarterback or something like that. I could even see playing like Sam Howell over Herbert this week, but you're probably playing him. But you wouldn't be surprised if this is a really rough game for him. You would think that Austin Eckler is a receiver. This is a game where I don't think it would be absurd at all for Austin Eckler to get 10, 11, 12 catches, for Austin Eckler to get like 15 targets, right? You, in some ways, replace a big part of the running game, which isn't working, with just throwing the ball to Austin Eckler.
Those are long handoffs.
Right. Screen passes again, dump offs, and also getting Austin Eckler isolated one-on-one running routes against a linebacker. That could be good. Otherwise, you're looking at Keenan Allen, short passing, although I think the Jets are going to focus on taking him away, and that's why you said Quentin Johnston. We're going to watch Josh Palmer in his practice reports Thursday morning. He was in and out of the game on Sunday night against the Bears, knee wrap, knee issue. So let's watch that, because if Palmer isn't going to play, now I'm interested in Quentin Johnston a little bit more. Certainly, he's a possible what the heck flex this week, but perhaps even more interested in Donald Parham in the middle of the field. We're going to watch Gerald Everett, but Parham, and when they get inside the 20, he's a guy that Justin Herbert's looking for. And this is a Jets defense that tends to give up a lot to tight ends. So this could be a Parham week. We know it's going to be a Jets defense week. And we know with Zach Wilson, it's just don't blow it. Just don't lose the game for us. And you did your job.
Yeah, you do your job by just having the least impact you possibly can have.
Yes.
Sorry, but that's where we're
we
at.
We say it about
Zach
the refs,
Wilson.
But not the quarterback, right? You know it's a good game for the quarterback when we're not talking about him.
Exactly. It's like offensive lineman, right? He's not holding. He's not doing anything. You're like, you don't notice him. Okay, don't notice Zach Wilson. Well, who's that mean you do notice from a fantasy perspective on Monday night?
It's the same as always. Breece Hall. And Breece Hall's going to find a way. You can't hold Breece Hall down for an entire game. And now he's got the workload. And again, this is a good moment to say, hey, props to everybody who, again, for the second year in a row, said, I hear all this stuff. Last year was Michael Carter, who I believe started over Hall at the beginning of the season. This year was, well, it's an ACL, takes 18 months. And look at the Jets. They're signing Dalvin Cook, and they're bringing him along slowly. And no matter what anybody says, they're concerned. And if you said, no, I don't care about all that, Breece Hall is really good, and I want him on my fantasy team, you were smart. And the Jets are smart to give him as much work as he can handle. And Garrett Wilson, 2 straight games with 17 PPR fantasy points, 7 for 100, 8 for 90. So at least Zach Wilson can do that. And we'll see if the Chargers, if Brandon Staley, I mean, are we even asking anymore? Is Brandon Staley going to get fired at the end of the season, Cease? Is it just one of those things where let's be considerate? He's a nice guy, so let's let him play out the season as the coach, because this is a game where that defense better do something if we want to say it was okay that he's – I think that, unfortunately, he's made this defense an underachieving defense. And how do you underachieve against Zach Wilson?
Right, exactly. If the Spanos family wasn't so damn cheap, would he have already been gone?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. We shall see. It is that time where you need some punch in your fantasy lineup, and that's why we have our ever popular What the Heck Flex. You're looking over your roster. You need some help. Help me, please. Help me, Lord. Help me. Well, we've got some help for you here today. Now, it'll depend on if he plays. We talked about Dameon Pierce earlier in the show. That's a what the heck flex for me this week. Might be just all Devin Singletary. But Dameon Pierce is in that what the heck flex level there. Tyler Algier, always in that what the heck flex level. And Tyjae Spears tonight, Thursday night, depending on when you're listening, could be that what the heck flex for you at the running back position. So to wide receivers, I will go and I'll say, what the heck flex? Well, Wan'Dale Robinson. I love him. Again, watch the injury report, see if he's out there. Romeo Dobbs. There we go. Romeo. He's what the heck flex level. Maybe a little bit higher than that. JSN. I talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba a little bit earlier. So he's in that lineup there as well. Noah Brown. Did we bring up Noah Brown? My brain hurts. Noah Brown. Houston side of things in that game against Tampa Bay. I think I might be stuck on that game. Anyway, and then Quentin Johnston. I don't trust it yet, but if you want to trust him as a what the heck flex, I could see it. Let's talk about your week 9 what the heck flexes, Bloom.
Yeah, some familiar names. I think Devin Singletary leads the running backs. We're going to watch the Dameon Pierce practice report. Zach Charbonnet, again, I think this is the kind of game where they're going to need the offense, the pass offense that they have with Charbonnet, not necessarily the ground and pound offense with Walker. Brian Robinson, is he fallen down to flex level? Just we saw Chris Rodriguez get some touches 2 weeks ago. We thought, is it the beginning of the end for Robinson? Didn't happen last week, even though Washington didn't exactly have a big game on the ground against Philadelphia. They could this week against New England. Jerome Ford, I'm just including him in there to say don't hesitate to play Jerome Ford against Arizona, even though it was a 3-headed backfield last week. Tyler Algier. I would say this. It's math. It's inverse proportion, right? The worse you think Jaron Hall is going to play, the more excited you should be to play Tyler Algier, right?
Right.
Like with every Jaron Hall turnover or 3 and out, that's 2 or 3 more carries for Tyler Algier. So if you start to add it up, 20 carries for Tyler Algier in this game does not seem like that remote of a possibility. Wide receiver Demario Pop Douglas, again, watching this New England offense against a Washington defense that just traded away their 2 best pass rushers. And, well, who's Mac Jones going to throw the ball to? Jonathan Mingo mentioned against that Indianapolis suspect secondary. Love the Wan'Dale Robinson call. Again, we're watching the Giants pass offense against a not-so-great Raiders defense, asking the question of who's going to get the targets now that Darren Waller is out. Quentin Johnson, you mentioned, again, watching the Joshua Palmer practice reports and Khalil Shakir. Watch the Quentin Morris practice reports, but hopefully Buffalo figured out that even if they do have 2 healthy tight ends, they have a really good young slot receiver.
That is correct. It is with love and appreciation that we do this show for you each and every week. Of course, we'll see you Sunday. No Broncos game.
Yep.
So it'll be a little bit earlier. We'll go over the early games with you and get you ready for those afternoon games and, of course, Sunday night football. So we'll be seeing you on Sunday. He's Sigmund Bloom, at Sigmund Bloom on Twitter. I am at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. Help out the channel, as Ryan says. Hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm. We appreciate you all for doing that. And it's always a Broncos show, Ryan. Even when they're not playing, that is correct. So do the YouTube things, help us out, grow the YouTube channel, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we appreciate each and every one of you. He's Sig, I'm Cease. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned, and would you, as always, please stay frosty.